What's up, guys? Long time no see. Sorry it's been a while since I've had any updates, but obviously, as you can see, I've still got the car. A lot of you guys have asked me, hey, did you sell it on eBay for 10,000 bucks? No, not ever gonna happen. I've got way too much in this car and more time and pride than anything else. And there's a special little thing on eBay called a reserve. So that's what that was all about. But no worries. Still got the car. Still been doing a lot of stuff to it, just had too much going on to really do any updates and things like that as I go. So wanted to give you guys an update, let you know what I've been up to a little bit more. I've also been thinking about doing another build actually, but a budget build. So this one was more the let's buy everything new off the shelf build and see if we can make it happen. But just for shits and grins, I was thinking about doing a let's see how cheap we can do on building mounts, things like that. So if you guys are interested in that, let me know, and I will try to work on putting that together. So leave me a comment, like the video, subscribe, do all those things that people do on the YouTube videos, and I'll see if I can't put that together for you. One other thing is it seems I get more questions than anything about wiring, so I'm going to go over some real quick basics on that for people who aren't interested in listening to my long-winded videos, but really on my setup it's very straightforward. All I'm really doing is running the Porsche stuff in there, but in a very limited manner. Porsche wiring harness originally was hacked. Like I said, if you want to watch the whole video, I'll go into the wiring in more depth. But now I've gotten a new harness in there. Thank you, Woody. Appreciate for hooking me up on that. And got that all put in this weekend, so everything is working properly now, which is very nice. But essentially, I've just got the factory Porsche stuff in there running in parallel with the GM stuff. And really, on the Porsche harness, this time I kept all the grounds because I think I had done away with some of them the last time when I had hacked my harness up, and it worked. I mean, you can do a very limited harness. You can hack away almost everything on the Porsche stuff, and it will work. But key things are going to be doing all your grounds. There was 2 or 3 of them in the Porsche harness, so you might as well just connect those up and let them be. The coolant temp sensor is probably the biggest and most important thing with regards to making your dash stuff work easily. You do have to tap the Porsche sensor into the GM head. So if you guys have watched some of my other videos when I was doing that, pretty straightforward. There is a spot on the head already, and you just drill and tap it for, I think it's a 14 by 1 tap, and it'll go right in. Use the Porsche harness. There is a difference. This is a 2000 model and originally came with a 4-pin sensor. The wiring harness I just got came with a 2-pin sensor. It was a 2002, which you can make that work too. It's just a couple extra wires to hook up. It's not that big of a deal. Like I said, if you want to wait till later in the video, I'll go over some of that. But the alternator wire from the Porsche harness is not needed. That just connects, just clip the connector off of the Porsche harness, hook it up to the GM wiring harness. AC compressor if you want to run AC. I got that going on here now, so tip top, love it. The engine compartment temp sensor, engine compartment cooling fan, I left that in the harness this time instead of hacking those out, just in case I get enough room in there somehow to fit the factory fan back in place. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but we're going to try that. I'll have to wait until I do some rearranging of the coolant system, just so I don't have to do too many lines there. But then the speedo wire going to the transmission, get your speedometer working, and then the starter wires, the exciter wire and power going down to it. And that's really all you need from the Porsche harness to keep things going and keep the dashboard happy, use the ignition key, things like that. Obviously there's further integration with the GM harness into the car itself, which I probably won't go into all that in this video because it's pretty in-depth, but let me know if you got any questions. I'm glad to answer them. But then for the most part, the GM harness that I've got is just a crate motor harness, so the thing you got to understand is it's all just wires, and it's all just bundled a specific way for whatever application. All you got to do is start undoing wires and pulling the stuff off to the side you don't need and keeping the stuff you do, and that's all I really did with the the Porsche stuff to begin with. Like I said, I kind of made a mistake of just hacking off a bunch of stuff because I just wanted to get to the bare minimums, but in retrospect, after wanting to get the air conditioning running, making sure the fans are working properly, not have the stupid light flashing on my dashboard, things like that, I redid it all just to make things easier. So anyway, that's the wiring in a nutshell. If you want to hang out a little bit longer, I'll go over some more of that. But right now I'm going to go over some updates as far as what I've done with the car for you guys. And, you know, I'm not a master of video editing, so I'm going to have to stop this, probably have a really crappy chop in the edit, and we'll continue on from there. So I appreciate it. We'll talk to you here shortly. And we're back. So, as I was saying, done quite a bit to the car still, even though you guys haven't had any updates, but the only real aesthetic thing is I got these sweet sport seats, black Sporties in there. I swapped over all my power stuff, so they're actually power Sporties, and they're actually heated too, but I don't have any heaters for them. I may do that, but that's not really on my priority list. But everything else I've done has really been mechanical. From up top, doesn't really look like much. Like I said, the biggest thing is probably that I got the new wiring harness in, and that's all of my woes of the past are gone. You know, the flashing light on the dashboard that I was getting was because basically the low speed cooling fans weren't kicking on, so that's taken care of now with the new harness, and so that's all happy. So anyway, figured I'd crawl up underneath here because obviously I'm not at the shop with a lift or anything, and just go underneath the car, show you a few things. So all the way up top here, got my air conditioning on, yay! I was actually able to do this using the factory lines too, so a little trickery, a little bit of bending, stuff like that. Didn't have to cut them, didn't have to have them refitted, anything like that. Oh wait, can't quite see as easily. It's a little hard to tell underneath the car here, so apologies. But anyway, that is all in place now, working. Got my wire hooked up to it. One wire, no problem, real easy. Got my belt situation a lot more sorted out than it had been. Renegade provided a real sweet aluminum bracket to get the alternator tensioned with, which, to be honest, was worth nothing. So I made that little guy right there, tensioning bracket, to help the situation, but really still have a little bit of an issue with the fact that the belt only goes over a small portion of the main crank pulley there, so, you know, without putting a lot of tension on it, it does tend to slip a little bit. So I just tensioned it up a little bit more. Hopefully that's taken care of. But yay, air conditioning is all in place. Everything is working there. The other big thing I did down here recently was that I just went ahead and I got the oil cooler back on. Which, if you guys have been following along, I actually had the, oh, yeah, this video sucks, sorry. I actually had the oil cooler in place where the air conditioning was over there, and now I have tossed it right back there. So I made a little mount for it. That is up in the muffler area. As you can see, my exhaust system, which I've updated there too, with just 2.5-inch resonators. So a lot better sounding than with mufflers, not nearly as obnoxious as straight pipes. A lot cleaner sound to it, so I'll get some video of it running, or I may be able to fire it up here in a minute and let you guys take a listen to it. But that's another thing I had done. I did redo the exhaust a little bit here too, where I made just shorty downpipes for the oxygen sensor, so that wouldn't all have to come off every time the downpipes have to come off. And then I just V-banded the downpipes there too, so 2 bolts, real easy to get the whole back half of the exhaust on. Actually, you can get the entire exhaust off with 5 bolts or less, so pretty nice when you set it up right. That's why I love those V-band clamps. They make things real nice. You guys can see my old cold air box that I had done some time ago up there, the electric water pump set up. All that's been working real well. The electric water pump had died on me, had me a little bit nervous for a while, but seems to have been performing good lately. I currently have a 180-degree thermostat in the system, which works out well. You know, as long as you're moving, the thing barely gets above 180, 190 degrees. But you know, with the hotter weather, I'm sure that's going to change here soon. So that's a lot of the updates I've done to the car, and the rest of it is in the back here. So, like I said, I went ahead and I got a new wiring harness from a guy to redo the Porsche stuff that I had done. And the reason for that was because basically I had hacked up so much of the Porsche harness, I just didn't want to go back through and rebuild and figure out exactly what I had done or what I had screwed up. So, effectively just went through and took a brand new Porsche harness and just trimmed back what I didn't need. And that is all down here in the corner. Let me get my little flashlight out, makes things a little easier. So now, as I was saying earlier, basically run both systems in conjunction with one another. So I've left everything undone here now so you can see it a little bit easier. But really, starting off on the left-hand side here, that's the GM fuse box. So that just simply hooks right up into the main harness right over there. And then the other portion of the harness just goes right to the GM ECU, which is there. That's all pretty straightforward. The nice thing about the GM ECU stuff is all of it comes labeled with these nice little, like that's the cooling fan wire, things like that. You really only have to hook up like 5 or 6 wires out of the GM system to get things working. Like I said, some of the integration, one of the other big questions I get is about how do I make the tach work? That's how I made the tach work. Tach adapt, you can just Google that. I think it's Ashlock Technologies. Guy made it. It's probably the greatest thing ever. When I figured out what my problem was, I started thinking about, man, if I had something that I could just do some dip switches or something like that, it would be perfect. Bam, this guy had already come up with it. So if you guys are having trouble getting your tach working or reading properly just due to wrong voltages or whatever, that is the magic box to get right there. So that will help you through all of that. Everything else is just tap into a couple of the wires right there in the junction area. That's why it was pretty convenient to have the fuse box mounted over there on the left side of the trunk. Now with the amounts of the wiring and everything, just made things easier. So that was pretty straightforward. The Porsche harness, basically, I just took it up, and I'll show you what I had done here the last time. So this was all I had running the car before. And there we go. As you can see, it was pretty sparse. I only had a few connectors even connected to anything. You can see I had just basically hacked it all off and just not worried about all that stuff. I just kept the very basics. Well, like I said, I had left a few things out of it, which I wish I hadn't. So went ahead and redid it, but this shows you how much of the stuff I had pulled out before. I mean, just tons of stuff. So you can do without all of that. But this time, instead of doing all that, I basically just pulled out the connectors I needed, took everything else, tied it back as far as I could, retaped it up. So this is the entire remainder of the Porsche harness here, down in this corner. And really, I haven't buttoned things up at all yet. So as you can see, all you really need to do is zip tie it out of the way a little bit. You could probably get most of the factory trunk stuff back in there, or just redo it a little bit, and you wouldn't really even be able to notice. I've got the one ground hooked up right over here from it, but otherwise that's all of the throttle body connectors, coil packs, all the other stuff that you just don't need, that the car doesn't care about running anymore. So that's all just tucked down there, and that's really about it. Like I said, you hook up those other basic things with the Porsche harness there. You get your your AC if you want to run that. The coolant temp sensor is the most important thing. Oh yeah, coolant temp sensor. So like I said, this harness that I just replaced is actually a 2002 harness. So it had the 2-pin coolant sensor on it. And really, from what I could tell, the difference is basically that the 4-pin setup sends a signal to the ECU to read and sends 2 signals to the dashboard for the gauges to work. And I would guess that in the O2 model, or whatever the 2-pin setup is, that the 2-pin sends it to the ECU, and then the ECU in turn sends it to the dashboard. But with that not able to happen, I basically checked out all the wiring and one of the wires was in place already from the oil pressure sending unit that I really needed, so I just basically spliced that wire on the engine side of the harness, so you can't see it. So it's actually going right to the factory spot where my 4-pin harness was going from the 2-pin, which is nice. So obviously they didn't change much with it. The other wire simply just did not exist anymore, and you had to kind of make it up. So I tapped that oh heck, I can't even see it now anymore, but it's down in there somewhere where I tapped from behind there and just ran the extra wire all the way into right there. It's that white one, there it is. So that white one right there is just tapped right onto the back side of that black connector into that blue with the red stripe. So that was the one that needed to light up the dashboard, so that stuff's all working properly again. So now I can say the car is pretty much trouble-free for the most part. You know, it really all mechanically functioning. It's got air conditioning, oil coolers, fans, everything's working properly, so I'm pretty happy with it. You know, like I said, if you guys are interested in me doing a budget build, I think that would be kind of cool. Let me know. And if you got any questions about what I've done, let me know. And I appreciate you following along. I think that'll be about it. So if you got any questions, or if there's anything else that you guys want me to go into more detail on, just shoot me a comment or shoot me a message, and that way I'll be able to cover it in more depth. But like I said, that covers a lot of the questions I get about the wiring stuff, things like that. But you know, thanks for following along, and y'all have a great one.